here in the House this evening, and thank you for the contribution you made as part of the Select Committee process and your willingness to continue to engage in this legislative process that we have in this special place, and just want to welcome you back here this evening. Also want to acknowledge Camilla Bellich for shepherding this through the Select Committee, for her willingness to have a korero, have a conversation about some of the nuances of employment law in New Zealand, and certainly I did learn through the process, and I want to acknowledge that this evening. I want to acknowledge the Select Committee for the hard work that they put into shepherding this through, and the conversations that happened and led by New Zealand First and by the Honourable Casey Costello to the amendment that was put forward as part of the Committee of the Whole House stage. And I'm not sure that that amendment has been particularly explained so far this evening, in that there were some key words added, which included the without reasonable excuse, and that was part of why the National Party, as part of the Committee of the Whole House, did support that amendment, so that if the bill did become law this evening, it would be a better law for it. And so just want to, as I say, acknowledge our coalition partners and on the Honourable Casey Costello for bringing that amendment to the House and ensuring that the piece of legislation is better than what it would have otherwise been. But, Madam Speaker, it troubles me this evening that this has become a conversation about whether or not employees should get paid. The answer to that is pretty simple. Employees should get paid what they are due for the work that they do. That is not the question here this evening. The question here this evening is whether or not the system that we currently have in place adequately, appropriately addresses that concern. And, Madam Speaker, it's important to note that we have the Employment Relations Act that makes it very clear that underpayment and breaches of employment agreements are dealt with, or can be dealt with. That the Minimum Wage Act and the Wages Protection Act ensure workers receive their full entitlements and prevent unlawful deductions. And we have the Holidays Act that requires payment of leave entitlements and imposes penalties for non-compliance. Look, I'm not going to take side comments, Madam Speaker, from the Greens this evening, who want us to hug the middle, right? When we're talking about stealing money from employees, but they don't want to give them tax cuts and put more money in their pockets. So quite frankly, I can't even see why they feel they've got an opinion this evening on this topic. So we'll just keep that korero over there quiet while we focus on the current law that we have. A law that protects employees, gives them rights, and ensures that they have the right to deal with issues in their employment relationship when they come up. Now, what was interesting through the process, both here in the House and in the Select Committee, is we asked for data around theft from employees on a number of occasions. And what we were given were broad challenges using the current system that provides for grievances that didn't and couldn't accurately provide a number for theft from employees that's currently occurring. So what is being proposed this evening and proposed through this process, Madam Speaker, is something that tries to deal with the exception rather than the rule. And I take the point from our New Zealand First colleagues that 99.9% of all employers are good employers. And I'm simply quoting a member who has shared that perspective earlier this evening, and a perspective that I value significantly more, Madam Speaker, than anything that comes from that corner of the House, Madam Speaker. And so the point about the 99.9% of employers that do a good job is that while this bill doesn't target them, it is going to increase the compliance burden, the expectation, and my concern is the mental health of the small business, small and medium employers, small and medium enterprises, who are going to have another thing that their HR consultant comes along and says, are you aware that you could go to jail? That you need to come to this workshop, you need to learn more about this. It's going to add another thing that employers and businesses have to learn about that doesn't actually solve a problem, that doesn't add to the set of tools that are already in our legislative framework to deal with this sort of problem. Now, the comment was made earlier this evening, Madam Speaker, that businesses don't work without employees. And I agree with that. In my journey as a business owner, without a team, we couldn't have achieved anything. But similarly, employees don't have a job without an employer. It is a relationship that requires both to be involved. And yes, you can talk about some of the larger ones and how it'll be easy for them to ensure they comply with this. And of course, there are already remedies if they don't. And we make that point very clearly in the House this evening. There are already remedies for those where this happens. And I feel for an employee that is in this situation where they have had the effective theft of their wages by an employer, I feel for them, Madam Speaker, but there are already ways, avenues within our law for them to ensure that they get their wages paid, Madam Speaker. But I am concerned, as I say, for those small and medium employers, those sub-20 that my learned friend spoke about earlier, and what this will mean for them. The question for us this evening is, when we add a law to the statute books, does it add to the set of tools? And is the cost of implementation, the cost of red, and I've heard it said a couple of times over recent times, the cost of red and green tape, because we have to remember that those two things are tied together in this House. That when we talk about thieving from the pockets of employees, we should also be talking about the fact that both of those parties who are so concerned with employee earnings in this country that they voted against, in this House, Madam Speaker, they voted against tax cuts for those very people. which I just find very ironic with their concern. But we have to think, Madam Speaker, about the cost of implementation of these laws when we already have a legislative framework to deal with this challenge. Now, during the Select Committee process, and it might not have actually been on this bill specifically, because we have the unions talk to us on basically every bill in the Education and Workforce Select Committee, Madam Speaker, and our chair, Katie Nimmin, effectively guides us through those discussions. But the point was made recently by one of the unions that in employment relationships there is a good faith requirement as part of the employment agreements, and they argued that this covered all manner of issues that may come up in an employment relationship. And while I'm certainly not suggesting this evening that is the only component of employment law in New Zealand that an employee who has had theft of their wages can rely on, because I've already referred to the actual specific statutes and the language within those statutes, Madam Speaker, that ensures protection for employees. I did think it was sort of rather ironic, Madam Speaker, that on one hand the unions argue on the occasion that suits them that good faith covers everything, but on other occasions maybe good faith isn't enough, and we need much more specific language within our legislation and within our framework, and of course we don't support that, Madam Speaker. The biggest thing that this does is it shifts one aspect of employment law from the civil jurisdiction to the criminal jurisdiction, and we don't believe that actually improves in any way the ability for employees to get recompense when they have had their wages withheld or stolen, Madam Speaker, and so therefore I don't commend this bill to the House.
Yeah, okay. Yes, there is data on this. I mean, look, if it's not a criminal offence, it's kind of hard to get like consistent data. But in saying that, yeah, we still have data that you can look at. I've got that 2019 report that I keep posting in the chat. It's like, yes, please go read that. It's a real eye-opener. It even goes over the 2008 wage theft that occurred with Chorus subtractors in Auckland.
Yeah.
That is a real case that happened. I've even got news articles here from the Herald, a non-woke newspaper, talking about wage theft and how it's common in the hospitality industry. I've even got articles from Stuff. So this information is out there. He's just, for whatever reason, choosing to ignore it. And the Labour Party laugh track is on fire tonight, because I'm with them on this one.
Yeah. I liked it how I said, get the coffee ready. Yeah. And Shaz, you are so right. Imagine, put it this way. Wednesday, I had to listen to him at normal speed. Yep. I'm not used to listening to MPs at normal speed these days. And I had to listen to it, and it felt and this is just the start of it. I mean, hey, I like what Mr. Arvard says there. Yes, you can buy some waffle treats from me. That's a great idea, and we can call him was it Carl Bates? Or here's something else. And do you remember those ASB ads? Goldstein.
Yeah, I think I do actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Goldstein's son. Actually, let's see if we can find an old Goldstein ad on YouTube. See if that's like the Goldstein ad and see.
Yep.
Goldstein ASB.
But yeah, while you're doing that, wage theft, right? That 2019 report, I'm going to quote it directly, okay? Wage theft is by far the most commonly reported, researched, and publicised issue, while document confiscation and substandard accommodation is less studied. So yeah, we do have studies about this, and again, I can put the same report over and over again in the chat. I'm pretty sure Tui Arnold just made a reference to it in his speech, but there you go.
Yep.
There you go, chat. Right there, you can read it.
It's been 4 years. What's the situation?
Situation's perfect, sir. Just perfect.
Thank you.
Please come this way.
Good morning, Mr. Goldstein.
Is that your family there?
You've got to show them who's...
So you take a look at that. That's Goldstein.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we go back a little bit, and I'll just get the one on there. Now, Carl Bates.
Yeah.
Like, you look at that comparison.
It's like a Goldstein over here trying to explain to us why wage theft is actually okay and we should be tolerant of it.
Well, actually, put it this way. the ads that are on here are 20-something years old. So it's Goldstein's son.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually want to know who's the guy who Ira Goldstein, because the thing is, he's done a lot of work. Like ASB ads was his biggest one in New Zealand, but I think he did actually do other work, because there is an episode where he did appear on Shortland Street at one stage as well, back in the early 90s. Ira Goldstein, ASB, and I actually wonder who. Oh, it was played by Steve Meller. Unfortunately, Steve Meller does not have much of a profile on there. Let's see what Steve Meller actor.
Mm-hmm.
No, was it? Who played 2010?
Is this a research? Is this a research stream now?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not even sure off, but yeah.
Going down a rabbit hole. Who is this actor? Yeah.
Now let's get back to the real one. We're going to sit there and stop referring to this Cal Bates as Goldstein say.
Damn, I've got to pull you out of the rabbit hole. Can't go down there.
Okay, let's get to some serious stuff.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok.